Here's a picture of Willie Wayne Williams, the current Secretary of State, a Republican, a hyper-partisan Republican who is also a Mormon. So just, you should know who your Secretary of State is, right? Colorado. So here's Wayne Williams. This is Wayne Williams. This is Jena Griswold. Jena Griswold is a Democratic challenger. She has to win her primary first. She's got a primary coming up, I think, in June. I think the last Tuesday of June, there's a primary coming up. And she's a Democratic candidate, along with Gabriel MacArthur. Here's a picture of Gabriel MacArthur, right? So that's what he looks like. So, yeah, just get familiar with him. This is Gabriel MacArthur. This is Jena Griswold. And then this is Philip Villard. And Philip Villard, I know nothing about him except for this picture. And what this picture tells me is he is a very happy man. He's a very happy-go-lucky man, very cheerful. It's like he's got a bowl full of jelly, right? He seems very jolly. And he's an African-American man, right? So an African-American man, Philip Villard, hopefully he has more of a presence. I'd like to see him jump into the race. But he and Jena and Gabriel MacArthur, Jena Griswold, and Philip Villard are all candidates on the Democratic ticket. So they're going to have to beat each other. One of them is going to emerge as the winner between those three, assuming nobody else jumps in. I think that people could still jump in right now. But for right now, those are the three candidates that the Democrats have to choose from. Here, of course, this picture is of who? Of course, it's Donna Lynn. Donna Lynn, who is the Lieutenant Governor of Colorado. John Hickenlooper is the governor. Donna Lynn, Lieutenant Governor. And then, of course, there's this guy. You know who this is. Walter Stapleton. This is Walter Stapleton. This is the treasurer of Colorado. Now, this is the executive branch. We're going to be re-electing all these people next November 2018. So, I mean, I'm sure you know Walter Stapleton, Colorado. I'm sure you know Walter Stapleton and Donna Lynn. And here's the Attorney General. Who's the Attorney General? I'm listening. How come? All right, fine. It's Cynthia Coffman. So Cynthia Coffman, the Attorney General, that's what she looks like. That's her face. So all these folks are going to either be running for re-election or they're not. Here's an interesting meme. It says the number of major political parties in Netherlands, there's 17. In Switzerland, there's 13. In Belgium, 11. Germany, 14. UK, 16. Norway, 8. Denmark, 8. Sweden, 9. My God, 17 political parties. 8, 9, 13, 11, 14. I mean, look at them. The democracy is flourishing in Germany, UK, Belgium, Switzerland, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. And here in the U.S., we got 2. Now, all this is relevant. All this, I'm talking about Proposition 108, okay? So Colorado had a whole bunch of propositions. They had a whole bunch of amendments, ballot initiatives to vote for last November. So even though Trump had won the nation, Hillary Clinton had took Colorado, and then we also passed, there's assisted suicide. You're allowed to kill yourself now. That's legal. The health care thing failed. Minimum wage was increased, and some other things. Proposition 107 and Proposition 108 also both passed. Proposition 107, 108, they spent over $500,000, the people that got this passed. Both Proposition 107 and 108 was brought to you by Kennedy Enterprises. So Kennedy Enterprises, thank you. I'm not for sure who's running Kennedy Enterprises, but it was Kennedy Enterprises that got us more democracy. Proposition 107 has to do with presidential elections. Now presidential elections in Colorado have to be open. They have to be open so you can jump in, if you're an independent, into the Democratic or Republican primaries when it comes to the presidential elections. That's not an immediate concern because that's 3 years from now. But Proposition 108, that's the one that I want to talk about. In last fact, they spent $500,000 on both Proposition 107 and 108, the Kennedy Enterprises. So good job, Kennedy Enterprises, for passing, getting Proposition 107 and 108 passed. That's amazing, valiant effort. So Proposition 108, the language, it's fundamentally going to change how Colorado votes. So when the Colorado voters go to the Democratic primary at the end of June, the last Tuesday of June, to vote for, between Philip Villard and Jenna Griswold and Gabriel McArthur, when they're voting for one of those three candidates, they're going to have to deal with the new laws, the new rules that Proposition 108 introduces. So Proposition 108 is going to fundamentally change how Colorado is going to vote. It's actually a wrecking ball into the two-party system, so I'm very much in favor of this proposition. So now what Proposition 108 does, instead of having just exclusive two-party system, now unaffiliated voters can vote in either the Republican or the Democratic Party. Those are the two parties, so I'll just name them. The language specifically says big parties, small parties. So small parties actually don't have to include unaffiliated voters. If you're a very small party, you can have an exclusive base. But if you're a major party, so you're going to have to draw up language that determines what's a major party versus what is a minor party, because minor parties can exclude unaffiliated, but if you're a major party, Proposition 108 says that any unaffiliated voter is allowed to vote into your political process. So that means the Democratic and Republican parties, their ballots are now open to the entire public, the entire voting public, of all the Republicans and all the unaffiliated. So all the independents, right? That's what unaffiliated actually is just independents. So the ballot language calls for unaffiliated voters receiving a combined ballot that shows all candidates for elected office for each political party. The combined ballot must clearly separate candidates for each political party, and unaffiliated voters may only vote in contest for one political party. So I think those are good rules. Essentially, they have mail-in ballots here, so they're going to mail in the ballot, and you're going to be able to choose the Republican race or the Democrat race, or maybe another race, right? Maybe there's a Green Party race that you want to jump in, but you can only choose one. You can only choose one of those primaries, and then you have to vote those one, that primary that you chose. So I think that actually kind of affiliates you a little bit, right? You have to choose one. So if you choose the Democrat primary, then you can't vote in the Republican primary. Now, I think this increases the power for the unaffiliated voter. It actually gives all the power to the independents, because they got an option to vote independent, to vote third party, to vote in a Green Party primary, or they could vote in the Republican, or they could vote in the Democratic primary. They could choose whatever the hell they want to choose. And a Republican or Democratic voter, however, they can only choose amongst their own. If you're a Republican voter, you can only choose amongst Republicans. You can't vote in the Democratic Party to fuck up their election. Now, a smart Democrat might be unaffiliated, jump into the Republican election just to fuck up your election. So they've actually doubled, they've increased their power. So the people who stay Republican or Democrat, their power is limited compared to the unaffiliated voter. If you're staunchly Republican or Democrat, it would still make sense to be unaffiliated for the reason I just said, so you could fuck up the opposing party's election. You could vote for the worst candidate. They did this in Ohio. Bill Cunningham was on the radio, and he was, screaming about this. But a bunch of Republicans voted for Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama in the Democratic primary election in 2008 because they saw Obama as a stronger candidate for the Democrats, and they figured that they had a better chance at beating Hillary than they did Barack. Therefore, hordes of Republicans tried to fuck up the Democratic primary in Ohio in 2008. I think they did, actually. I think Hillary won the 2008. I don't know, in Ohio. But that was their goal. That was their intention. That was what they were trying to do. The Republican race wasn't as important to them as fucking up the Democratic race. So this is an option for all unaffiliated voters from here on out. So you could vote for the candidates. You could vote in the Republican because you identify with them and you want to choose them. You could fuck up their election. You could choose the Democrats. You could choose your own thing. So there is an erosion of the exclusivity of the two-party system. I think the two-party system would be pretty pissed off about this, but I welcome the erosion. The Proposition 107, I think, dismantles the two-party system. So I look forward to the die-hard fools who just say, I'm always a Democrat, and I'm always a Republican. I'm a Democrat, and I'll be a Democrat till the day I die. But, Dad, you don't understand. If you're unaffiliated, then you actually have more power as a voter. No, I ain't going to be doing no unaffiliated. Like I said, I'm a damn Democrat. Ever since FDR, I'll always be a damn Democrat. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Well, Dad, you're not much of a reason, logic, and science kind of guy, are you? I said I'm a Democrat, and I'll always be a Democrat. You can't get a rich man to vote like that. So, yeah, you could be a Democrat, be unaffiliated, vote in the Democratic Party, vote for the people that you love, but also leave the option for voting in the Republican Party and fucking up their election. So this substantially changes how elections are going to be held, especially primaries, and this is going to be coming up, so this is an issue. This is an issue for all voters. We all got to get educated about how this ballot is even going to happen. Wayne Williams, he actually encouraged people to give their point of view because I think he's a Republican. He's a partisan, so I believe that he doesn't like this at all. He hates the idea that anybody could just come into the election and just sort of vote for them, and some people have, made really good analogies, essentially saying it's like allowing the Oakland Raiders to choose the quarterback or the head coach for the Broncos. And it can be like that. So, but it's an open primaries, and this is the law. The people voted for it, so you got to make it work. You got to make it work. And I think what's going to make it work is when they just check one box. And you know what? You might have some people trying to fuck it up. I would say most people would be honest. They would be honest about it and vote for, the party that they most identify with, because people want to vote for things. They don't want to vote against things. Or you should be like that. If you're not like that yet, that's how I am. That's why I voted for Jill Stein. I voted for Jill Stein, and I feel great about it, and I will vote for every candidate that I vote for here on out, because I vote for them, not against somebody else. Another interesting thing about Proposition 107 is that it allows political parties to change their primaries from the public voting at large to having conventions or committee. So can you imagine that? The Democratic Party can actually, or the Republican Party, if you want to maintain your exclusivity, not do primaries anymore. Don't do at-large voting primaries. Instead, have a convention or by committee. Can you imagine? I mean, that's essentially what the DNC and the RNC, a lot of times if they're corrupt, they'll go ahead and choose their candidate anyways. If they're a legitimate committee, then they would try to, fan out their candidates in an equal manner. But could you imagine if they just picked them? The committee just says, okay, we're not having a primary this year, just the Central Party Committee, us 12 people are going to pick the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. That's how the Republicans and the Democrats can get out of Proposition 107, by having their own convention, which I think is more likely than the committee thing. But the committee, they could even do the committee. Nope, we're changing our laws from now on. We're going to be voting by committee. Us 12 people are going to choose who the candidates are. That's unlikely. Conventions are more likely, which they could do, because by having a convention, all Republicans get to this big building, and then they all vote, and then that's how candidates are going to be elected, by the convention. I think that seems messier to me. I like the voting primaries at large. But we'll see how this all unravels. Wayne Williams has to write the laws up to all this. So in a way, that's a monumental task in front of him. And but he's got to figure out something by the last Tuesday in June of 2018. That's when the primary happens, the last Tuesday in June of 2018. And then the primary ballots that we're all going to be using is going to be the primary ballots that he figured out how to write up. So I think it's important to understand this. It's important to understand this, that, when he writes these rules, Republicans, if Wayne Williams, who is speaking from his point of view, he wants to keep the Republican Party exclusive, then you can allow unaffiliated voters into the Republican Party, get the Republicans to change the rules, have a convention. Now you can ban all unaffiliated voters. Nope. It's not an at-large primary. It's a convention now, so every unaffiliated voter has to go on home. And so that's what the Democrats and the Republicans are going to have to choose. Are they going to have a at-large primary and risk having people come in and fucking up their elections, or have an at-large primary encouraging independents to come in and trying to get people into their political parties, make them interested, make them excited, make them to where they want to vote for the people. They want to be a part of the Democrats or the Republican Party. That's what the party should be doing anyways. So that's Proposition 108. Proposition 108 is Wayne Williams. He's going to have to write it down, and so Jenna Griswold, Gabriel MacArthur, and Philip Villard, if he ever comes out of hiding, they're all going to have to talk about this issue. They don't have to talk about this, but I think when it comes down to how Wayne Williams actually writes this out, they need to pay particularly close attention to how he actually writes these rules to make sure that they're fair and equal and, democratic. So it'd be interesting to see what Wayne Williams comes up with us, and it'd be interesting to hear what Philip Villard, Gabriel MacArthur, and Jenna Griswold has to say about those new ballads of Willie Wayne Williams, our Republican Secretary of State.